Hello, my friends. Evening time here, just settling down, getting ready to eat dinner and getting a shower and call it another day. Today, while I was working, I listened to another video from Schaeffer Cox, and it's very impactful to me. He tells his story pretty much up to the point where before they entrapped him and then arrested him. And they tried for years to try to get trap Schaeffer Cox, and so they could arrest him. And the reason why is because he was teaching people and educating them about these principles of liberties, about the purpose of government, the limitations of government, and the rights of the individual. And he was very successful in this. People were listening to him. He had a lot of people following him. He ran for office and did very well, which scared them as well. And then he also was organizing militias, kind of family units, to help and defend each other and to watch over each other. And the federal government saw him as an extreme threat and sent FBI agents, just for him, I should say, 6 of them. And their whole job was to entrap and to provoke him. And I think you should listen to this story. I think you should take the time and sit down and listen to this story. It's about 30 minutes. But it appears that a lot of times we're too busy to find out the truth and to do something. And I'm asking you to listen and watch this video. Thank you.
They transferred out the FBI and U.S. Marshals out of Fairbanks, and they brought in 6 federal agents just for me and the militia. Now, it's their policy, and it's not just something that they kind of let under the rug. It's their written policy that anytime there's a group that might weaken or disturb the powers that be's control over the people, that what they'll do is they'll come in and they'll try to provoke an incident that would then make them appear justified in bringing the whole group down and just disrupting and splintering the whole thing. So that's what they did, and first thing they got to do is they got to start out with character assassination, because if you kill the man before you can name him, then you'll just make a mark. So they started out with that, and that caught us totally by surprise. And then, let's see, I had I think 6 or 7 actions going all at the same time, and then they just finished it all off with, I just got a tax audit now. So it's they're really coming at us. Started out with these charges with me and my wife, and then they followed that up with another felony charge of unlawful contact. I got an attorney who's a friend of mine, and he was just baffled. He just didn't. He's like, I don't know what to say. This is not. None of this is typical. I'm kind of confused. I got to call somebody, figure out what happened. None of this is in the ordinary.
And that's when you went to that house?
What house? Oh, no. This is 2 weeks later. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This was all in about the span of 3 weeks. We just sort of got jobed, all at once.
Uh-huh.
But it was good. It was a blessing. I don't know if it was in disguise, but it was a blessing. So then we got all these charges pending. First one gets dropped in 3 days, but makes headlines all over the country and all over the world. Okay. Second one gets just held for a month or 2 and then gets dropped. Then we respond to a Liberty Bell call where this lady's got cops coming in her house, and she said, you can't come in, and
right. Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, go get a warrant. I said, we're coming in anyway, and she said, well, I want some witnesses around here because I got a feeling that you're not following the law. And so everybody shows up there, witnessing that with the Liberty Bell. works great.
Now,
Everybody,
the Liberty Bell, in case somebody doesn't understand what that is, if they don't know, what is it?
the Liberty Bell is an automatic phone network that we have in town here with about 6,000 to 7,000 members in it. And anytime that somebody gets in a situation where they feel like their rights are being violated and they'd like to have some witnesses around, then they just call the Liberty Bell operator. And the Liberty Bell operator message instantly to all those people that so-and-so could use some witnesses at whatever address. And then if you're around in the area, then you just stop by and just get your cell phone camera there and just kind of, watch what's going on, and it just keeps everything on the up and up. And it's just done some really great things. And this time it was doing great things because they didn't have a warrant and they just were kind of being defiant, and they need to follow the law. So got arrested there, and the cop comes behind me, puts my hands in, grabs my hands, and man, they teach them the most horrible, like, voodoo grips. I'm gonna have to learn some of those. That was a good trick. And I said, well, am I under arrest? Didn't arrest anybody else or hassle anybody else. I said, well, am I under arrest? And he said, yeah. I said, well, what for? He said, I don't know, I gotta go look up some laws. And it's on the recording too, that's the funny part. So we, there's that, and no charging document. Went to the arraignment. The DA went ballistic, wanted me to not be court ordered to not do any more public speaking, not hold any meetings, or stop operating the Liberty Bell, and just went off the deep end. But there were so many people there that there was enough pressure that they didn't. It would have been too embarrassing for them to go that against the laws of this nation to do. So they didn't do that. But then, and
now, when you say they, who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the judge and the prosecutor and all the state folks. Well, they're not even really state folks, which is another thing we figured out, which is, I think, one of the reasons that we're in such great danger right now. So then, shortly after that, we get a knock on the door at our house, and all the while, we don't know what's going on. We don't know where this is all coming from. But after the fact, it turns out that there was these 6 federal agents up from Aurora, Colorado, that came up here just for this purpose, that were just pushing all this stuff. If they can't lock you up in prison, they'll tie you up in court. And we've been building enough momentum, and the biggest thing that we've been doing that's been so powerful is education. Is just teaching people about the law and about what the Founding Fathers envisioned and about your rights, that those come from God, and we establish governments to protect those, and that's the only job that they can do. Just teaching people, and we've been just turning out these courageous folks. And that's dangerous, People is ideas are a controlled substance these days. So anyways, these agents pushing this. So we get a knock on the door, and these people are at the door, and they say, we're here to get Seth Cox. That's our 1.5-year-old, our little baby. And they say, we're gonna take him and check him out. And all this stuff, just one after another, all these attacks are just coming from every direction. And so of course I'm not going to cooperate. I know they're up to no good. But I said, well, what am I going to do here? So I thought, well, Obi-Wan Kenobi did this one time, and it worked. So I went, I'm not the man you're looking for. And they just turned around and left. No questions. I'm not the man you're looking for. And they just walked away. So right then, Marty and I left the house and started living in safe houses, running from these people. This is all just politically driven, mischief. And it turns out at the end, what had happened is those federal agents had filed a complaint of child neglect. And their basis for that was a picture on Facebook of my little boy on the living room carpet playing with ammunition. I mean, just a staged picture, just playing choo-choo chains with ammunition in an ammo can. Oh, isn't that cute? Take pictures and then we put it up, never too early to start them, up on Facebook. And then they use this as a basis to,
How did they? Or they get them
on
off
Facebook, they
yeah.
can just go in. I
Sure.
think the FBI thought up Facebook. I think that they invented that to get us to all just put that stuff out there. So anyway, now they're going after our baby, and we're running from them. And of course, our first inclination, which is I think mistaken, is if you've got nothing to hide, then and you're not doing anything wrong, then you've got nothing to hide. Okay, the honest man has something to hide from pirates, and when they're acting like pirates, the honest man needs to hide. So our first move was we said, well, we would love to come on, do an interview, sure. And we said, but we want our attorney to be there. And they said, oh, no, can't do that. We said, well, then we want it videotaped. They said, no, there can't be any records made of this. And this is the Office of Children's Services saying this, that's being pushed by the feds. And so we said, well, you guys are up to no good. So that's the end of peace negotiations now. You know, this is ridiculous. And so we just quit cooperating with them entirely. So then they went to a judge and got a writ of assistance, which is, by the way, the thing that started the Revolutionary War, was writs of assistance. And they took it down there to the troopers, because these federal agents, in order to orchestrate an event, they have to have some degree of local cooperation. And they took it down there to the troopers and was trying to get them to, serve this writ and come kick in our door and take our baby away from us, just in case, just so they could check him out, because he might be neglected playing with ammunition on the floor. And so they take it down there to the troopers, and the troopers say, well, we don't have the manpower to safely execute this writ, and we're not going to have anything to do with this. And they said, well, what are you talking about? Why? And they said, well, we're afraid that there would be counterattacks from the militia within hours if we did this, and we just don't think we're totally in no way prepared to deal with this. And it probably also helped that a lot of those troopers know us, know Marty and I, and that kind of a thing was met with a high degree of suspicion right off the bat. I think that helped probably more than we know. But anyway, come to find out, what the supervising agent had said, the words that came out of his mouth, quote, like verbatim, was this: our plan is to try to take Seth away from Schaeffer and Marty, and we believe that will be sufficient to elicit a display of force, at which point we will shoot all three of them. Now they needed some cooperation to get this showdown on the road. And naturally, if there's a big shootout with me and all of this movement that's picked up all of this momentum, then it would probably, fragment and splinter that. But you know what? God took such good care of us this summer, and we should be dead right now if it wasn't for His provision. And like that we read in the Bible just a minute ago before we started, that though your enemies are camped around about you, that He will deliver you, and that you will not be ashamed, and that you cry out to Him. We saw that. Not only did we see it, we felt it in an amazing way. And it wouldn't be right for God to take such great care of us in the face of such horrendous wickedness, and for us to not proclaim the mighty protection that He put all around us. Mm-hmm. There were so many miracles that kept us safe. People at all levels of government broke ranks and risked their own jobs and their own livelihood to help me and Marty. People stuck their neck out there. It got so bad that the Fort Wainwright commander told Marty and I that we could have political asylum on post, because these guys come to town and they're trying to get people to cooperate with this big plan to get a shootout, and they started catching on, and their consciences came through.
There's nothing to do about those guys. Couldn't they kick them out?
No, and even like really high up, powerful people. And this is one of the problems that we've got, Dick. There's this kind of a charade government, but then there's like the boots on the ground real government that's just totally unaccountable. And the other thing was they were DEA agents, Drug Enforcement Agency. Now, I don't even drink coffee. I've never so much as smoked a doobie in my life. I've never even been around drugs at all. And so I was baffled initially. Well, why do they have drug enforcement agency coming after me and Marty? It's because every time that they bust a drug dealer, they get to just keep that cash. And so they have this huge cash under the table budget, and they can go around doing things that would get a tremendous amount of scrutiny if it showed up as a line item in the budget. I mean, kill a young couple and their baby doesn't look good going through the Congressional Budget Office. And so they do it with this cash. Now, there might be people out there who are not believing this. And I totally understand, because you know what? I was fighting against this kind of corruption and I still didn't quite believe it. And you know why I didn't believe it? Because I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to not believe it. Because if this was true, it meant that things are way worse than I had ever imagined, that hard times were ahead. It would have popped my bubble of delusional bliss. It meant that I would have a moral obligation to roll up my sleeves and cry out to God for deliverance and undertake the ugly task of opposing this, rather than just, sitting on my hands singing Kumbaya. Mm-hmm. So that's our summer. We spent our whole summer running from these guys. Eventually what we did is we went into court. The judge wanted us to go in for a secret court, and we said, forget it, we're not going to do that. And I sent the command staff down there, and they said, no way, you want to meet with Schaeffer, it's got to be public. And we went down there, and we didn't say a word about the law, we didn't say a word about, or it's a pretended law, nothing. All we said was, look, this looks like a politically driven attack, and there is no sense starting a war over this, and we just want to live at peace with everybody, and that's, I'm sure, what you guys want. And these guys will come to town, they'll start this big hullabaloo, and then they'll just fly to the next town, and we'll be left here with town torn apart. And so we just made an appeal to the sensibility of the locals that we don't need to fight with each other. And these guys are trying to get us all revved up for a cat fight, and it's insanity. And we said, Judge, we don't want a war. But if you want a war, we've got one hell of a war with your name on it. But if you want peace, that's what we want too. And the judge said, well, that's very encouraging. And the Attorney General said, we'll get this to go away. And that was the end of it. We haven't heard anything more. So we kind of won that battle because of God's grace, but now they're still here in town. And we just decided that now it's time to just quit, being silent about this, and especially to point out God's mercy. And you need to hear from Marty on that. Do you have a question? Did you have a question?
Well, the question is how many people are in the militia? Kind of goes away from our.
Yeah,
but that's right.
That's okay. There's about 3,500 in the militia in the whole interior. Now there's different levels of active and inactive, and different levels of training, but there's about 3,500 guys. We've been working on this for about 3.5 or 4 years. And the whole goal and purpose of that is defend all, aggress none. The whole idea is to get to know your neighbors, and if things fall apart, then the good Fairbanks folks can pull together and hold it together. Because
it's not a malicious militia.
It's not a malicious militia. No.
Right.
It's.
But there are some of them out.
There definitely are, and there's there's trigger happy cowboys in the militia that we have to kick out, because that's not what this is about. If you're just wanting to keep your family safe and live at peace with people, then this is it for you. But if you're angry and wanting to go pick fights, you're not welcome here. But there's trigger happy cowboys in the federal government too, and you've got these guys in the militia that just want to fight. Not in our militia, because we don't let them stay in there. You've got these guys that just want to fight, and then you got these feds that just want to fight. And there's no point in fighting. If we all just respect each other's rights, then we can all get along and be fine. So we're not going to aggress anybody, but we're also not going to tolerate any aggression from anybody. I mean, it didn't come to it, But, and I'll say this on, I mean, they got my phones tapped, so they know I'm saying this, so it's nothing new to put out on TV. If there came a time where they were endangering my family, you bet I'd kill those federal agents. And what kind of a father and husband would I be if I wouldn't? Would I sacrifice my family on the altar of submission to the wicked state? No, that would be despicable. We would highly criticize anybody who did that, stood by and watched in history. And we've got to reckon with the fact that that's our time right now. Now, we had those agents with 3,500 guys. We got tremendous resources at our disposal. And we had those guys under 24-hour surveillance, those 6 trouble causers that came up here from the federal government. And we could have had them killed within 20 minutes of giving the order. But we didn't, because they had not yet done it. And it's not right. They're people too. And they've got just as much ability to repent as anybody else. And there's no sense in it. Now, how they rationalize what they do is between them and God. I don't think it makes any sense. But we want to have forbearance and patience and peace towards all men. And everybody. But God's grace and His providence has just been amazing. It was really hard on Marty and I, being uprooted and getting smeared all over the press and having these people hunting you down, and new mother and just a little baby and living from house to house, with just a rifle and a sea bag. But at the same time, I think God was teaching me personally something there, and that was to hold all my possessions and my home and my personal peace with an open hand. Because when you just run off and leave your house and your business and everything, and you just run for your life, what's the verse that says, head for the hills, and if you turn back for your cloak, you're going to die? Well, that's what it was like for us. And these folks were in hot pursuit. And that really taught me the value of my wife and my family and God's provision. He gave us everything we have. And He can take it away and instantly give it back again. And we're A-okay in the midst of that. That's something that we had to work through together as a couple, And Marty's got 3 points that are on that topic that she was going to share, so I'll let her.
Go ahead.
Well, 3 points that we were talking about in the Jeep. We were like, well, there's so much. There's such an abundance of information and facts about what happened this summer that it was like, well, we need to narrow it down for time's sake. And we were bouncing it back and forth to one another, and we decided that, the first was that you see these things happen to other people, and you're like, wow, that's kind of messed up, that's screwed up, and you have inklings of, well, this system might not be perfect, there's some corruption, but you don't realize how corrupt it is and how really the enemy uses this system to wage war against God's people. And you don't realize that until it kind of comes barreling down on you. And that it really struck home with me. I knew that things were screwed up and that the system was corrupt, but it wasn't until they came and attacked my family needlessly and just really were seeking to steal, kill, and destroy that which God sought to bless, that I started to realize how corrupt it really was. And once you see how corrupt it was, once I was in it, it was like, wow, how are we going to fight this? How are we going to overcome? It felt like we were outmanned. The federal government seems so huge. Their resources seem, unmatched. And it was like, how are we going to win this? There's no way that we're going to be able to make it out of this, at least in one piece. You know, we might make it out alive, but is our family going to make it out in one piece? Are we, you know, is our child going to be safe? Is he going to be taken to some other home and taught lies about his mother and father? And so out of that, I had to come to a full realization that God was the ultimate warrior. You know, just as Joshua led the people of Israel into the promised land, God commanded him to be strong and courageous, for he was going to be with them. And he was the one who won the battles, and he was the one that fought. And he only required his people to be faithful to his word and obey him. And you know, and then David really spoke to my heart, you know, reading about David and realizing that here was a man who made mistakes, who was, you know, who was sinful just like we are, but who was a mighty man of God, and who was a man after God's own heart. And it was because he had faith. He believed that God was going to be the one to save him and uphold him and deliver him. And the Psalms just became living bread and a refreshment and encouragement to my spirit. And really, that is what sustained me, was God's word and his promises in the word that he is going to deliver his children from evil. And you know, there's just so many specifics, you know, about the snares that the enemy puts, you know, at our feet, and God puts our enemies in those snares, and how our enemies use deceit and lies about us to try and make us look a certain way so that we're abandoned by others who would want to help. So, you know, it's just over and over and over in Scripture. It just showed that the enemy does seek to destroy God's children, but because we are his children and because God is righteous and faithful and loving. Now, you know, we made it through the battle. The biggest battle was with OCS, trying to keep Seth safe from, you know, maybe well-intentioned, but people who didn't understand, who thought that it was their place to take care of our son, the son that God gave us to protect and make sure he was safe and nurtured. And
by the way, OCS kind of got suckered into it. You know, once OCS figured out that the whole thrust of this was the feds trying to, now OCS as a whole is wicked and vile and horrible and should be, you know, thrown in the garbage can. But there were some good people in there that once they figured out that they were being used to start a shootout, they were backpedaling 100 miles an hour. So, like, kudos to them for, you know, they might be confused about whether children are property of the state, but they're not nearly as sinister as those agents that came up here that were just trying to start a shootout. And they, you know, started backing off. So just to put a point of clarification there.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah. They were definitely in all areas, you know, in all the different areas where we were being attacked or where the enemy was trying to use them as instruments to come against us. There were good people who listened to God when he poked them, you know, to do something. They obeyed, and it was because of their obedience that we experienced his protection and his provision. And but you know, we won the battle. God won the battle for us, but the war is still waging. The enemy is still out there because of perhaps even because of the victory. He is the ultimate enemy, Satan. You know, he's not going to just let us go. If he knows that God has great things for us, he's not going to stop waging the war. And the war is waging. There are more battles to be fought, and we're still fighting battles, and we're still having to rely on God's protection and provision. And we're seeing that every day, and just so thankful to him. And so thankful for the prayers of others during that time. We had people that we know specifically of who were praying for us, and I know there were many others that we don't know about. But the battle truly is won on our knees.
Amen.
It's
true.
Our battle is not against flesh and blood, although often it seems that way.
Okay.
If you've been hurt or wronged in any way, that can be changed. We need to talk about jurisdictions. We need to talk about what's proper and how we got here. We did a lot of research this last summer, and we came up with some amazing stuff. So people need to know that. We need to get together. We need to hang by one another, because let me say to anybody out there, if you are going through something where they are aggressing you and abusing you, you call me, because we will help you. Because after what happened to us this summer, we take our duty very seriously. And it's not just me, but it's all of the people involved in this. We will help you. And you need to be on your knees praying to God, because He is our deliverance. But we also need to stay together and sharpen one another and edify one another and take care of each other. And I just reach my hand out to any of you that are in that spot, and thank everyone who reached their hands out to us when we were the object of the aggressive despots that are the powers that be.
If somebody wants to get a hold of you, who do they call? What's the number?
Well, you can Google Schaeffer Cox and sort through all the trash and get my phone number somehow. Or you can just you can dial 590-9903.
Okay,
That's
590-9903.
Yep, that's my cell phone number.
Okay.
And I'm easy to find and hard to catch.
All right. Well, it's good to hear your testimony. Appreciate that. Very good. Yes, sir.
I misspoke that email address for the website. It's republicoftheunitedstates.org, republicoftheunitedstates.org, and please click onto the History tab. It's all verified and documented evidence.
Okay, and then the 1st of September, what time?
December.
1st of December.
7 o'clock in the evening at the Carlson Center.
That's the Carlson Center.
Yep, we're going to be there. We're going to lay out all the evidence, and then we'll probably just kind of present it to some of these folks and say, look, it's kind of time for you to shape up. We urgently need diplomatic relations to develop between this out-of-hand powers that be and the people who are getting fed up with it. Because if we don't establish those diplomatic ties, we are going to result with blood just by default. And I don't want to spill anybody's blood, and I sure don't want to have any of my blood spilled or any of my people's blood spilled. And there's no reason for it at all. It would be insanity for us to do that. There is no reason. And so people need to listen to reason and avoid that. We can all live it. There is no reason that we shouldn't all live at peace, but we've got to establish diplomatic relationships between the powers that be that are out of hand and the people that are here that are fed up.
And I have a table from my dear friend Schaeffer Cox. He's a United States political prisoner. He's a victim of the deep state. He was entrapped, set up, and kidnapped by the government. He's being held in one of 2 secret prisons called the CMUs, Communication Management Units. There's one in Terre Haute, Indiana, and one in Marion, Illinois. They were set up illegally. They shouldn't even exist. When we do a FOIA request to see who runs them, it comes back as it's not a government agency, so they don't have to tell us. He was being charged with conspiracy and solicitation to commit murder. In August 2017, the Ninth Circuit Court heard his case and they dropped the solicitation charge. And one of the things that they did mention was that there was no intended target. The judge said if I have solicited someone to help kill Mickey Mouse, can it still be a solicitation charge? So that's kind of how bogus his charges are. And he will be resentenced this fall. He's a great guy and thousands of people love him. We're also looking for an attorney in Illinois to help us with some things. Thank you so much.